chapter 10 is his favorite chapter. And he asked me a couple of days ago, he goes, how far are you going to go in chapter 10? I said, I think I'm going to finish it. And I could see him, he was sad because it's his favorite chapter. But we'll see how far we get, all right? And of course, we're going to just really quickly look at the review because John chapter 10 is known as the Good Shepherd. It's one of the I am statements. How many are there in the book of John? 5, 6, 7. Good. And he says, I am the Good Shepherd. And that's what he's going to say here. We see that this follows the healing of the blind man. And did the Jews respond well to that sign, that miracle? No. I mean, they were upset that it was done on the Sabbath, and they could really care less about the individual, right? And then they were questioning, well, who did this? And then when it came to known that it was Jesus, so they're, of course, going after Jesus then. And it just shows the disparity between who Jesus is and the religious leaders of that day. And do we see that even going on today? All right? And so he says, he who does not enter by the door into the fold of sheep, but climbs up some other way is a thief. And so just remember that, because in chapter 10 and verse 10, 11, we're going to see that language again. But if you enter by the door, so they'd have like a hedgerow fencing. It's not like a fence we would have, but there would be an access way. But the guy that comes in from the front, well, he is the shepherd, obviously, right? And so they know his sheep. They know him by his voice. And, of course, he knows them by name. And I don't know how much Mariano talked about this last week. I know a lot of you had sheep comments because you had sheep. And we're not going to go there today. Unless you want to talk about goats. But they're about the same. But is everyone a sheep on this world? You know, maybe you don't like, well, I'm not a sheep. I'm a shepherd. No, everyone follows somebody or something, right? You say, well, no, I'm my own self. No, you have a voice in your head that you follow, that you've heard, that kind of leads you, right? And so, and when we say we follow a voice, that means we all have a shepherd. If we're all sheep, we're following someone or someone, right? Now, whether it's the good shepherd or somebody of this world, you know, means, you know, it's less, we'll find out. But, you know, it's interesting. Isaiah talks about every individual on this earth. We've all gone astray. Of course, that's Romans. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Because we want to do our own thing, and it doesn't always work out that way. So there's only ultimately two shepherds. You're going to follow Jesus, or you're going to follow someone of the world, right? That's the thief, okay? And so there's the idea of the hedgerow, or that's one made out of stones. But he would actually call them, and they would come out. And that's why Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice. And often we just wonder, why don't some people follow Jesus? And part of it is because they cannot hear his voice because they're following another shepherd. And you say, well, I don't understand how that is. Well, it has to do with issues of the heart, right? So when he's talking about him being a shepherd, they didn't really understand that, but I guess we do. Now, when he says, I'm the door of the sheep, that's another I am statement, isn't it? Because he said, I am the good shepherd, and also I am the door. So he's using these metaphors to describe his spiritual access through him to the Father, right? And he's trying to lead people to the Father. And so we're not going to go over all that because that's what Mariano did last week. But we're looking at number 3 and number 5. I am the door of the sheep, and I am the good shepherd. Of course, he's going to finish later in chapter 14. I am the truth, the way, and the life. And how does that end? No one comes to the Father but through me. So here he is his door. He's his access portal. And so we're either following Jesus or we're following somebody of this world. So we're going to go all through that. And we finally get to where we left off in verse 10. And that's where he said I could pick up in verse 11. But here Jesus says, I am the door, right? I'm the access. And if anyone enters through me, he's going to be saved, right? And you're going to find pasture for your life. In other words, you're going to have an abundant life, a good life, ultimately in heaven. But here he says the thief comes, and what's his only purpose when he climbs over the wall, not through the door? Steal what? Kill. Why would he kill the sheep? Yeah, to devour, to eat them, right? And then what? Destroy. Now, who do you think the sheep is in this context, looking back to chapter 9 when he healed the blind man? Who would the thief be? Sorry, did I say sheep? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about Julie. It was hard. Who would the thief be? Huh?
The false teachers.
The religious leaders, the Pharisees and all that, that were challenging Jesus and wanted to stone him, right? And so they are the thief because they are leading God's children, the Jews at this day. Are they leading them to God? No, they're leading them away from God. Remember, Jesus in the woe said, woe unto you Pharisees and hypocrites. You go all around the world to recruit or proselyte one person, then you make him what? Twice the son of hell as yourself. And so they're not trying to get people to follow God, but trying get people to follow them. They love respectful greetings in the marketplace. They put on long robes because they like drawing attention to themselves. Remember Jesus said all that? That's the thief. Now, do we have thieves today in the religious world? Yes. They don't represent Jesus. They represent themselves. They want people to follow themselves. Say, well, no one would do that in the name of Christ. Well, let's wake up and don't be naive. Because even Satan disguised himself as an angel of light. Yes, Ann.
Well, the clue is given in verse 8. All who came before me are thieves and robbers.
Right.
But the sheep didn't hear them.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the common people today, when I say common, not the highly esteemed or the educated, they could discern the truth, couldn't they? And they followed Jesus. It's amazing. All right, yes.
Well, and Paul warned the church in Rome of this very thing in chapter 1, too, where they'll come in and do that very thing. Even though the faith of those in Rome was known throughout the world, they yet had these things creep into the church. And Paul had to warn them of that.
Exactly. So this is a very powerful verse here because we deal with it today. Sometimes people say, why would a loving God send people to hell? No, it's quite the opposite. Jesus was sent by the Father, the loving God, to keep you from going to hell. He's trying to save you, but there's a thief out there who's trying to steal all those people so they can go to hell. You know, God's doing the very opposite of what he's accused of doing, right? But when people say no to him and they want to follow the thief, God said, okay, I'll let you have your own way. And that's called free will. But when we come to Christ, we're going to have life and have it. And that doesn't mean we're going to have riches on this earth. It doesn't mean we're going to have permanently good health. That's apparent. Because, boy, our life is truly in God's hands. It's amazing. It's a shock when you hear someone Julie's age have a major stroke, and it makes you realize it could happen to any of us because you get that call, and when you see the call and you see who's on the name, like, it's Carol, something's bad because it's early in the morning, right? But that's going to be all of us. But where are we going to have ultimately life abundantly?
In heaven.
That's right, with God. And of course, that's going to be part of our lesson this morning. So there was where we left off and said, I am the good shepherd. Now in verse 11, the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. In their day, they had people that had part ownership in the sheep, or they were hired by families to be the shepherd. And then they would have an outside hireling, all right? And it was such an important job because a lot of responsibility was put on you, and the last thing you want to do is lose a single sheep if you're a good shepherd, because you would become the outcast of your community. Now, hireling, what would happen when they're faced with a lion or a bear or a wolf? What are they going to do?
They're going to run.
Yeah, because they don't have anything invested in the sheep. They're just doing it for the money, right? And so that's what Jesus says. He who is a hireling, he's not a shepherd. Now, I hate to keep going back to preachers because I am one, but there are a lot of people that preach just for the money or the status or the prestige or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not even, on TV, that's an obvious one to see, right? But even those that aren't on TV, right? And they're called hirelings, Jesus called them. They're just paid to do the job. So he's making that contrast. So he's not a shepherd who is not the owner of the sheep. And when he sees the wolf coming, he leaves the sheep and runs. He bails, all right? And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. Now, who would the wolf be here? Satan, right? And if I say wolf, that's because I had a poor mentor, and he called the wolf woofs, because they go woof, woof. And so you know what I'm talking about, right? He flees because he's a hireling. He's not concerned about the sheep. Does Jesus desperately care about us?
Yes.
Well, he gave his life. What else can he do to show that? Yes. I got to get away from that speaker because it's making a little feedback. Okay, go ahead. Did you have something? All right. So that takes us where to really there's not a change of subject, but there is. But we see in Ezekiel, God had a problem with the so-called shepherds of Israel back in the Old Testament. And he says, see that in the paragraph, woe shepherds of Israel who have been feeding themselves. See, they just are only concerned about self. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? You eat the fat and clothe yourself with wool. You slaughter the fat sheep without feeding the flock. Now, what are the sheep he's talking about? Children of Israel. And these are the religious leaders. This is back in Ezekiel's day, hundreds of years before Christ, right? Those who are sickly you have not strengthened. The diseased you have not healed. The broken you have not bound up. The scattered you have not brought back. Verse 5, they were scattered for the lack of a good shepherd. And they became food for every beast of the field. My flock wandered through all the mountains. And so God's going to hold them accountable. And that's partly why we see the destruction of Jerusalem coming, because they're only concerned about themselves. Now, what does God say about pastors or shepherds in the church today? Shepherds. I'm talking about overseers of the flock.
Be on guard because wolves will come in among you.
Okay, you're supposed to watch, because, even amongst you. But in the last day, what are each of them going to have to do? Give an account for those that they led. And if you didn't lead them, and you were just leading yourself, woe unto you. It's going to be the same woe. All right? So I love this language. That's why I got to share it. He says, I'm against the shepherds. Here's God's people, the religious leaders, and he's against them because they are against him, aren't they? All right? But I'm going to always deliver my flock. So is Jesus always going to be there for us? I don't care what the world's doing, the religious leaders. You know what the biggest criticism of Christianity today is? You've heard it. Huh? Hypocrisy. They see the religious leaders just serving themselves. And then, of course, the flocks, so-called flocks, are just serving themselves too. But there's the true sheep, and there's the true shepherd. We just got to look at ourselves, make sure we're truly a sheep listening to the true voice. All right? So there's where we are. So I'm going to finish there. And then verse 14, I am the good shepherd, and Jesus knows you. And remember we've talked that word about knowing? What does it mean when we say knowing God or God knowing us? Huh? It's an intimate relationship. He doesn't just know who you are. He knows you. And remember, it's used of Joseph knowing Mary, even talking about sexually, right? It's an intimate relationship. And so when we see that Jesus says, I know my sheep. And then also he says on the other side, we what? Know him. And so I guess we have to look, do I really know Jesus? Because your relationship with Jesus is going to determine how you live the whole your life, right? If you see him as a good shepherd he's only got your best interest, you're going to do everything he asks, aren't you? You're going to trust in him and not in yourself. You're going to follow him wherever he leads you because you know he knows you and you know him and he's a good shepherd. And so what you think of Jesus determines everything. It determines whether you're here on Sunday or not too, doesn't it? Or doing something else. And so that's what he's saying here. Even as the Father knows me and I know the Father, I lay my life down for, that's the ultimate sacrifice, showing that his love for us. And I know sometimes it's easy even for me to think, well, he laid his life down for the world. But no, he laid his life down for. So I asked this question. If there's only one person on the world that God could save, and it was you, would he send Jesus to die just for you and nobody else? I'm going to have to answer yes. It's got to be personal. He did it for you, and he would do it again. Now, he says, verse 16, I have other sheep which are not of this flock. What in the world do you think that means? Huh? Exactly. So, because Jesus was sent to the Jews being a Jew, when he sent his apostles on limited commissions, remember, going only into the house of Israel, because it was the Jew first, and then to the rest of the world. So Jesus is alluding to that I have other sheep that, that are not of this flock, right, or right here, and I got to bring them also. Did that cause some angst between the religious leaders of the day and Jesus' commission to the apostles to go to the whole world? They hated the Gentiles. I'm talking about the Egyptians, Romans, Greeks, whatever. Because they thought, we are the only chosen people of God, and there's no room for them because they're heathens, right? But we have a whole different paradigm. We want to save who? Everyone. I don't care where they come or what they look like. Yes?
And the Apostle Paul, he carried that same demeanor that Christ did, and how he was concerned for the lost when he said 1 Corinthians 9:22, to the weak I became weak that I might win the weak. I've become all things to all men so that I may by all means save some.
Right.
That's Jesus'
That's right.
seeking to save the lost. And Paul would end up laying down his life for
Right.
the cause of Christ.
That's a good verse. I'm glad you shared that one, because becoming all things to all people, and it shows acceptance, right? And no bigotry in any sense. Can you turn me down just a little, please? Because I just keep hearing this feedback, and it's annoying. All right? So when we look there in John 10 still now, there in the middle of verse 16, they shall hear my voice and shall become one flock with one shepherd. And that's what's really unique about Christ's church, his family, and also very challenging. We get people that come from all walks of life. I love the text in 1 Corinthians. Do you not know no unrighteous will inherit the kingdom of heaven? And he lists a short list of people that are unrighteous. Idolaters, fornicators, adulterers, homosexuals, murderers. And then he says, such were, past tense, some of you, but you've been washed, sanctified, and justified in the name of Christ. And so they're part of the Corinthian church, right? All walks of life. And it's amazing that, first of all, Jesus can make them pure and holy, right? But they could accept each other. That's amazing, but it's challenging, isn't it? Because sometimes our own little value systems get in the way. Maybe it's called bigotry, maybe too, that we're not willing to accept certain people. But in Christ, here he says, they're all going to be one and have what? One shepherd. Isn't that what beautiful? I think that's what makes this group so unique. We have people from all walks of life, but we're really holding hands with each other. And it's nice. It's a unity that's very precarious because it can be broken so quickly. All right? Any questions about that? All right, so when we go on, this is very interesting, this section here. For this reason, the Father loves me. You know, Jesus is known as the beloved of the Father. Because remember when he was baptized, what did that voice from heaven say?
This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased.
So God has always loved Jesus, right? It's his only beloved Son. And of course, the antitype or the shadow in the Old Testament is where Abraham offers his own son, and he said his only son, and the son that he loved. And so Jesus is the fulfillment of that. Here, God has one son that becomes a child on this earth, is Jesus. And did he love him always?
Yeah.
Well, here it says he loved him because what? Well, in verse 17, because I lay my life down that I may take it again. Well, does that imply he didn't love him before?
No.
So what is it saying here?
It's only because he took on our sin. So
Right.
it made him, for a moment there, not accepting him because God does not like sin.
Right.
But because he is going to take that sin. For
Right.
us.
But here, I'm trying to create maybe some tension between your mind. Like, why did he love him? Because he was his only son, or because he laid down his life? Or both? How are you going to harmonize those together? Yes.
Well, he loved him because Jesus, from the beginning, obeyed his Father,
That's it.
and he was willing to come down to earth,
Yes.
lay his life down for us.
Did you hear that? Because Jesus was a son that learned obedience to the Father by the things he suffered. And he said, my food is to do the will of God. And he's going to say, and it's going to be in this verse coming up, it's already been said in chapter 8, I never do anything on my own initiative, by my own authority. I only do what God asked me to do. In chapter 12, it's going to say, I don't even speak by my own authority. I only speak what I've heard, the commandment of God. And so there's something unique about Jesus. Even though he is King of Kings and Lord of Lords now, he totally submitted to his will to the Father in everything. And that's why God was so pleased with him. The fact that, like you said, he even came down here. I don't think there was an argument. I don't want to go. Yes, go. No, he said, Lord, fine. Remember in the garden, did he want to get up on the cross? He didn't want to. His will said, no. 3 times, I don't want this, but nevertheless, your will not. And that's how we're going to be pleasing to God, because we trust God and we love God so much, we'll do anything he says because he's our good shepherd. Yes.
But we have to know. We ourselves have to know what he wants of us.
That's right. You have to learn his will.
One way.
That's right. You have to learn his will. Yeah, you can't just decide for yourself. Yes.
Did God ever change his mind concerning things? Is one of the things I always consider. And he did. And he reasoned with Moses, and he changed his judgment. He changed things. You can reason with God. God then looked at Abraham and required of him his only begotten son. And when Abraham was willing to do it, he stopped him. And what he stopped Abraham to doing, because now he knows his own creation would be willing to go to that point. God demanded it of himself, and he gave his son.
That's right.
And it's amazing because it shows that obedience, like you said, but at the same time, it shows willful obedience.
Yeah.
And that's what he requires of each and every one.
That's right. So we're sheep, right? We're all sheep. We follow someone, but we've all chosen to follow Jesus, right? And Jesus said, my sheep hear my
Voice.
So when Jesus calls us by name, what do we all say?
Here am I.
Here am I. Exactly. What do you want me to do? And then the sheep gives instruction, and then what do? We follow him. That's discipleship. And we're just waiting from instructions from the shepherd. Because we know he's going to lead us to green pastures, right? It's a good thing. It's never, sometimes it requires us to be in conflict with the world, but that's okay, right? So, Verse 18. I love this verse because it talks about Jesus's attitude towards God's authority, and it should be ours as well. Because a lot of times people say, well, why don't we do this in the church? Or how come we couldn't do, Well, here's Jesus' attitude as a submissive person to his Father. All right? No one has taken it from me. What's the it in verse 18?
Life.
All right? My life. No, wait. They grabbed him, the thieves, they arrested him, they beat him, they crucified him. Did they take his life?
No.
No, here he says, no one takes it. I'm going to what? Give it, lay it down. You think you're in charge, but no, I'm in charge because this is God's will, his plan. Of course, they didn't know that. But I want you to see that. I lay it down on my... Now, I just told you he never did anything on his own initiative. And it looks like this contradicts it, right? Well, let's keep reading. I lay it down on my own initiative. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up. In other words, to raise from the dead. Where did he get this authority from? This commandment I received from my Father. So yes, he has a will in the matter. In other words, personal choice. But I'm only acting on what God asked me to do, his commandment, and that's why I'm doing this. So you said, where do you get your authority? Because he commanded me to do it. And that's why we should operate as Christians and as a church and everything. I do nothing in my own initiative unless God gives me the liberty to do that. But I just say, Lord, what do you want me to do? And then do it. I think that explains Hebrews 5. Jesus learned obedience to the Father by the things which he... Because why would Jesus have to learn obedience? Well, because he came one of us and he didn't want to do all these things, right? But he learned how to obey God and submit to his will by the suffering obedience required of him. Does that make sense? And suffering's a good thing that way. It's a wonderful thing. It's beautiful. Yes.
And as much as I hate the fact that Jesus had to die
Yes.
because of sin and what have you, but I understand it. But also in God's plan, he wanted him to suffer the crucifixion for more than what I come to realize now, is because all the ailments that I may have in my body or other fellow brothers and sisters in Christ
Right.
will never suffer anything.
Not like that.
And
Right.
we're not going to go through the degree, if you will, of what he went through.
Right.
So he understands our problems when we have them.
Yes.
He understands when we have these maladies, if you will, sicknesses in our life. He's
Right.
been there. He's done it.
That's right.
I can serve somebody that understands my pain.
Right. And that's why he said he was tempted in all things as us, but without sin. So he knows. He's not unsympathetic. But I think he just gives us the perfect model of how to be a child of God. Because God's been crying through the prophets to the Jews for hundreds of years, all the Old Testament. And he said, okay, Jesus, go show them. Show them how to live on this earth and have an abundant life. And Jesus does it. Yes.
So Christ suffered and dealt with everything that man deals with.
Yeah.
Was he tempted to disobey God?
I would suggest yes.
And he was the example of how not to.
Because temptation is not sin. Is it?
No.
Temptation is the allurement to do some sin. But as long as you say, no, I'm going to submit to the will of God and not my own will. Because the reason we sin is because we disregard what God wants and we do what we want. We become our own God. Right? So yeah, he was tempted in all things, yet without sin. So when he said in the garden, I don't want to, he was tempted not to, I would believe. But nevertheless,
Well, it clearly crossed
he brought
his
himself.
mind.
Huh?
He clearly crossed his mind.
Oh, or else,
Have it.
what didn't he cross his mind? He uttered it. Let this cup pass from me. I don't want to die, is what he's saying. But Lord, it's your will, not mine.
Well, and to invoke, look, I could have an army of angels here to deal with you.
Yes.
And
Right.
one angel could
Yeah.
level a country in a moment. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to even speak that out is,
Yeah.
is a
Right.
very strong threat.
and let us be clear. Hebrews 12 says he despised the shame of the cross. I think the worst, this is my understanding, but I think it's right, because it says that. He despised the shame. Yeah, the suffering was tough, the pain and all that. But you know what bothered him the most? He is the creator of all these people he made, right? That's John chapter 1. He created everything by God's order, right? And now he's letting the creation mock him, spit on him, make fun of him, whip him. And it's the shame, because we all are pride-driven people, aren't we? You're not going to cross me. I'll be disrespected for so long, and then I'm all over you, right? I mean, that's our problems with all life. Jesus showed us how to humble yourself for the well-being of others, even though it causes you to suffer greatly shame and pride issues, right? Can you imagine how humble it was to let creation spit on you and kill you? That was the toughest thing I think he had to go through. And isn't that our issue? I can deal with the pain sometimes, but I don't like being disrespected or not having my way. It's humility, right? But God is opposed to the proud, but what does he do with the humble? He exalts and lifts up. Yes, Mary. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Matthew 4, she's mentioned with the temptation of Jesus, he had the pride of life there, the lust of the flesh, he was hungry, right? And lust of the eyes, showed him all the things, all the things that Eve went through, and you and I too. All right? So this is so much powerful stuff here. So, did Jesus ever act on his own initiative? The answer is what?
No.
When he chose to do something, it's because the Father what? Told him to do it. You always have a choice to obey or not obey, right? So this commandment, he says, I received from my Father.
And all the miracles that Jesus did, he did for others to glorify the Father, but he never used them for himself.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. That's why he didn't turn the rocks into bread. Remember, Satan said, well, if you're really hungry, how many days have you been without food? 40. No, 40. I think it says in the text he was hungry. I think that's an understatement. Right? Can you imagine the hunger? And now, could he have turned those rocks into food? Yeah. Would anyone miss the rocks?
No.
No. Would any of us blamed him? No, but he has this attitude. I don't do anything for myself, only the Lord. And the Lord will provide. I'm not going to trust in my powers that he gave me for my own self benefit. Isn't that something? Yes. To that extreme, yes. Yeah, just trusted him. And especially when you have a hireling, Satan, tempting you, he's not going to listen to his voice. That's the other added element, right? So, very, very powerful. Now, because of this, we're going to go and see there's going to be some problems. The Jews got, I skipped a part. Verse 19, there arose a division among them, the Jews, because of these words. In other words, he's calling God his Father, and I'm going to die only because the Father asked me to, right? Verse 20, and many of them were saying, he's got a demon and he's insane. Why do you listen to him? Remember that, insanity, right? That's what they thought. And many of them were saying, verse 21, others were saying, well, these are not the sayings of one who's demon possessed, because he's making sense. It's wise. It's amazing. And then also he said, a demon cannot open the eyes of the blind, can he? So this ties us back to chapter 9. This is all one setting, even though there's a chapter break. It's like, how did he do these miracles if he's from Satan? It doesn't make sense. So there's a division. Some are wanting to let the evidence, signs lead them to believe. The others have a hard heart to go, no, he's just crazy. Right? And it's all an issue of what? Heart. The heart. Same signs, same words. Some are going this way, some are going the other way. So I love verse 22. It's my favorite section in this chapter, and we have just enough time to introduce it. So we're now at the Feast of Dedication. It's one of the three feasts that take place in Jerusalem. So you could time that and on the map, and you could do your homework and look at what year or month, part of the month, a year that was. Oh, okay, you cheated. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple and the portico of Solomon. Just a beautiful area. The porticos would be porches that they were surrounded the temple area. Did you know they have snow in Jerusalem? I was there one of a freak 100-year snowstorm, and they had snow, and it just stopped the whole city. And my luggage got lost, so we had to put plastic bags over our socks and our shoes, and we walked down the Temple Mountain. No one's there, and it's just pure white snow.
And you got interviewed by TV.
Yeah, that was amazing. Anyway, just threw that tidbit in there. So verse 24, the Jews therefore gathered around him. Jesus is always drawing attention, isn't he? Yeah. Right? And I'm glad, because he is a good shepherd, and people want to follow him. But these people are going to ask a question, and I'm going to ask you some questions from it. They gathered around him in verse 24. How long are you going to keep us in suspense? We want to know. If you're the Christ, what? Just tell us plainly. All right. So when you look at that, this is what led up to it, these signs. But I'm going to go back because I thought I had this up here. But do they really want to know? I have that question coming up, but I'm asking it now because we're almost out of time. Do they really want to know?
They're just looking to accuse him.
All right. Yeah.
They want him to say it so they can kill him.
Right.
They want him to say, I am the
Right.
Christ, so they can murder him.
Right. Because he said, you're keeping a suspense like everything you're saying is cryptic. No, has Jesus been cryptic?
No.
He's always referring to God as his personal Father. He's going to do it again. He's going to double down. In this chapter, he said, I and the Father are one. And they pick up stones again to stone him. So has he been cryptic and secretive about this? No. And his sheep will hear his voice, but they're not his sheep. So they're looking for reason, like you both said, to trap him so they can accuse him and kill him. Yeah. And that's the plan here. How long are you going to keep in suspense? So it's this big festival. There's Jews all around. And this is their moment to set Jesus up for failure. So we call this a trilemma. Because remember again, some people think he's insane. And others are going, no. He's opening the eyes of the blind. There's evidence here to support that he must be of God. All right? And there was a Jesus seminar, and Marcus Borg down in Oregon State was on the board of this seminar. They're trying to reimagine Jesus, right? Because they say, we got it all wrong. He never claimed to be the Son of God. He never claimed to be God himself. And that's just something that they claim, and that Christians fabricated because we want to just elevate Jesus to a godlike figure. Well, they ignore the Gospel of John because Jesus multiple times, and in this verse, he's got a chapter, he said, God and I are what? One, and they want to stone him. Jesus said, well, why are you going to stone me? He says, because you claim to be God or equal with him, calling him your Father. So did Jesus claim to be God?
Yes.
And the thing is, what are we going to do with that claim? Either he's crazy. Now, let me just say this. If he's not God, and he's going around telling everyone he is, and he actually dies for it, what does that make him? He's insane. I mean, if someone came to you in the building and said, hey, and I've had this happen, people knock on the door, and the one guy had a big, long beard, said, I outrank you. And I go, what? Well, you're just a preacher, and I'm an apostle. You know, like, okay. You know, he was sent by God. Obviously, the guy was on drugs or something, so I just sent him away. But if a guy came in the building right now and said, I want you everyone to know, I'm not a man, I'm divine. Would you roll your eyes?
Yes.
And the security would usher him out? Because we got
I didn't hear any trumpets.
yeah. Now, if you were claimed to be divine, what would you expect if the guy was insistent on it?
Science. Prove it.
Do some godlike things.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fair?
Yeah.
Now, we call those miracles, John calls them what? Signs. There's 7 signs in the book of John, and it ends with these many other signs Jesus performed, but these are written that you might believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And by believing, you have life in his name. A sign is a miracle, but it's not to do the miracle. It's to change your mind and point you in a direction. This guy is not insane. He must be who he is, what he said. It's only reasonable, and you're insane if you don't believe it. Does that make sense? So a lot of people say, oh, Christians, they have this leap of faith and they just follow things because it feels good. No. We're putting our life on the line, and they did literally. They died for their faith. We're not insane. The evidence leads us that way. You're crazy for not following him yourself. See how he turns everything around, Satan does? Make us feel like we're the idiots. So that's what's going on here. There's this dilemma. Now here's the trilemma, and we'll finish here. And I've showed this before. Jesus claimed to be God. True? Yes. All right. Now, if that is true, we're going to go down one path. If it's false, we're going to go down another path. If it's true and he knew it, he is what? Lord. Right? There's no other conclusion. But if it's false and he knew it's false, what is he? He's the biggest liar and fraud and deceiver that's ever came. Now, can you put that past people do it today, claim things they know it's not true? Because they're trying to get the upper hand and get people to follow them. They're hirelings. But what if it's false and he didn't know it was false? He really thought he was God and he's not. He is insane. I mean, that's what they're saying, right? This guy's insane. Because they can't imagine God becoming a man. That is amazing, right? But the signs, what? Point to it. So our choice is Lord, liar, or lunatic. It's the only 3 choices. And so Lord, liar, or lunatic. And we look at the evidence and we go, nope, he's got to be. And here is what C.S. Lewis said, and I'll quit here. You must make the choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or he's a madman. Or something even worse, because he's deceived people. How many people have lost their life, their possessions, their money for Jesus Christ? And if it's not true and he knew it, he is the most evil person that's ever walked on this earth, right? You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about him being a good human teacher. Or they say, oh, he's just a good prophet. No. Good teachers don't claim what Jesus claimed if it's not true. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. You see, when we're sharing Christ with people, we need to share it this way. You have one choice. What are you going to do with Jesus? Either he's your Lord or he's a lunatic and you need to reject him, or the biggest con man ever was. There's no middle ground. Oh, he's just another good prophet. And that's nonsense. Because he claimed to be divine.
The more you reject him, he will give you up to a reprobate mind.
Yes.
He's done with you.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to leave this one and we're done because his answer was right here. Poo, poo, poo. Tell us plainly. He says, I told you and you don't believe. But what does Jesus point to? The works, that's the miracles I do, the signs in my Father's name, they are my witness. They answer for me. Don't believe me, he'll say in this section, but believe my works, my signs. And we have to wrestle with the miracles. And because that proves who Jesus is. All right, thank you. We're done with there. And Mariano will finish. Lord. Oh, yeah, lots of them.